Thank you for joining my stream today. I'd like to spend just a moment of silence, try and remember the lives that were lost 19 years ago. So, the lives that are being lost as we speak today, past 7 months, the 200,000 plus Americans who have perished this year. Again, thank you for joining my stream. I hope I'm not plagued by technical problems, so I'm keeping an eye on chat. If you happen to choose. Today is a rather difficult day for myself, and I know that it's probably a difficult day for others that possibly follow me. The community of people that I have become acquainted with since I started this channel are such incredible souls and hearts and minds, and I think about y'all every day, even though I do a pretty poor job of continually connecting messages on Twitter. The inspiration for the music, the silence, if you happen to know, did come from Healthy Gamer GG. Earlier this year, a prominent Twitch streamer by the name of Wreckful passed away, and it sent ripples through a burgeoning community of people. Really kind of focused on the idea of Twitch streaming in general. Sure, my mic is working really quick. Making sure that technology worked for us in a way that was more human than it currently is. Technology can get a bad rap, especially in the news cycle these days. But I'm focused on trying to guide the direction to the light in a way that technology can benefit us all, because I know that it can. And it's not currently. And I know that it's not because of the way that I have been feeling earlier today on the 19th anniversary of the tragedy that occurred in New York City, where nearly 3,000 Americans lost their lives. Something about this anniversary feels different than the ones before. I should stop for just a moment and finish the tangent that I was on. I would highly recommend anyone who's watching this stream that connects with what I say, with what I'm feeling, and what I hope to get across, to check out Healthy Gamer GG on Twitch and on YouTube. He's also known by Dr. K. It's centered around expanding the conversation around mental health through the lens of gaming. If you interface with the world like I do from video games, or if you know someone in your life who interfaces with the world through video games, check out Healthy Gamer GG and see the conversation that's happening there and the community of people. I really believe that this is the first step that we can take in getting social media to become something that's less centered around toxicity and more centered around something that connects us all, expands the human experience. So as I was saying, there's something different about today, something different about this anniversary of 9/11 that I couldn't quite put my finger on. And I realized as I thought about it more and more that it might be a conversation that other people could empathize with. Why are we so divided today, of all days, when 19 years ago, after the tragedy that occurred, united us in a way that we really hadn't seen before? All of the things, all of the barriers that we had built up between one another, differences that we had cast on the projections of this side and that side, really came tumbling down. And for a moment, we were one people. We're closer to one consciousness, even as a world. The French creation of the two towers next to the Eiffel Tower is where my mind immediately goes to. So I can't help but think these days that as we look at this remembrance, we currently are approaching 200,000 American lives lost from a tragedy this year over the span of about 7 months. And we're no more unified. In fact, more divided. Why is that the case when we saw 3,000 American lives lost and a unified outcome? I can only think, obviously, like we all know why, right? There was a very clear enemy. There was a very clear cause of the destruction and the death and the despair that we saw 19 years ago, whereas this microscopic disease is much harder to identify, much harder to see. So why do we remember 9/11? Because we ask ourselves, what is those lives for? What were their lives? Right? And it's hard to think of that today and to realize that we haven't had the chance to grieve loss during. It's hard for us, it's hard for me at least, and I know for other people, to grieve for 9/11 knowing that there's just something that doesn't add up. That we aren't pandemic, we aren't grieving the. So why should we be grieving this thing that led to 19 years of war and more loss of life? Yes, it unified us. Why was it okay to politicize those deaths, garner a cause behind it, but not garner a cause? We don't want to think that the lives lost were lost for a political. That's not the human process. The human grieving process is realizing that life and death is a constant, and we have to navigate through that space. And for most of us, especially here in America, we don't think of death that often. And 9/11 is especially memorable because it is a moment in which we all come together. Here we are trying to sweep COVID under the rug, trying to talk about it in the past tense. So I think what I wanted to get across today is that it's okay to feel despair and hopelessness right now. And I'm feeling that a lot of other people are feeling that. Trickiest thing about what we're going through right now is how we're so separated from each other. so separated from another perspective, which is really, I think, what socializing is so important for. Worst place that we can be, worst place we can find ourselves in, is a stagnating perspective, a singular perspective. The greatest gift that having other people around us can give us is to say, hey, maybe you haven't thought about things from this perspective, in this way. So I think today's a little bit unique compared to other years in the way that people might be handling 9/11. So I just wanted to reach out and know that you're not alone. The past few weeks have been tough for me. The past few months have been really. I'm so blessed to have a support structure that I can bounce things off of and then I can go to when times are hard. So many people out there right now that failure of the system that we exist in right now. They're in a pretty hard time. So if I can connect with anyone right now, even just one person who might need it, that's the reason why I'm making this video right now. Of course, I'm the farthest thing from a therapist. I'm the farthest thing from a mental health expert. If you want to get a little bit closer, go and check out Healthy Gamer GG. More importantly, find the resources that you need to get in contact with professionals. The resources are there. All you have to do is Google. To kind of put it in the perspective that Dr. K did after the loss of Reckful not too much ago, is we're in such a weird place right now where we have so much to be grateful for. We have so much to be optimistic about compared to years previous. Put it in the framing of how we are at the final boss. If you are thinking about mental health, human condition as a video game, mental health is really the last boss. We are getting so advanced with our technological biopharmaceutical treatments that human longevity is increasing, aside, of course, of the quality and systemic poverty that can counteract that improvement, that life is getting potential, at least, to get so good. But the place that we're really failing at is mental health. The place that we're really failing to improve upon is the connection that we have with one another. Technology, ironically, in some, paradoxical way, is separating us even further apart and causing the divisions that led me to, make this stream today. If we can just beat this final boss, and if we can stick around to see the end, it would be, everything is always going to be worth it. What were the lives lost for is the question that we just keep on coming back. And when you hear that President Trump downplayed the virus because he didn't want to start a panic, when clearly we know that starting a panic is his modus operandi. He starts a panic with every single phrase that he makes. Every time he opens his mouth, it's designed to stoke fear, to stoke uncertainty, and to stoke those darker instincts within us. The most damaging part about today is feeling that the lives that are being lost right now in this very moment are meaningless. And we can't let that, because it's just conditioning. It's just political narrative that's being passed before our very eyes, gathering our attention, keeping us hooked on the screen, keeping us hooked on every little thing that Trump may or may not say. How is he going to respond to this or that? In all of my research and all of my inner looking at how to garner a healthy mental frame of mind, I keep on coming back to the confirmation that social media, technology, the internet as it exists today is antithetical to the germination of what is a healthy human mindset, because it currently exists to take your attention. To take your attention away from the world that you live in right now and to put it onto this or that, all for the sake of selling you an advertisement, of keeping you onto a website longer, of driving outrage. It's a hard thing to realize that happiness exists in the present moment, and it sounds all, woo-woo, spiritual and everything. And I struggle to think of how to tell someone that if you want to find happiness, you have to approach your kitchen, grab a dirty dish, start to wash it, because it sounds so vague, it sounds so superficial, it sounds so pedantic. But there is something incredibly beautiful about taking something that's dirty, washing it with a cloth, seeing the bubbles pop up, feeling the water glide across your skin, and seeing at the end of it the transformation of this object caused from what you have done in the past couple of seconds. It's like a deeply therapeutic moment, but you can't just force someone to appreciate the task of washing a dish. And that's where people who are much more equipped, either through academia or a lifetime's worth of mental health, can help you with. But it's something that I'm trying to learn myself. It's never going to happen with social media right now as it exists. And it's not going to happen through our leadership. Right now, we have a void of a moral compass leading guiding the ship, if you will, steering this ship that we are all on. I've been doing so much research into malignant narcissism, pathological narcissism, and realizing that our system is structured in a way that allows narcissism to thrive. We should not be surprised that the person in the Oval Office right now is psychologically broken. We need to accept that. We need to understand that our mental illnesses as a whole, as a society, are the end result of a society that is structured around promoting that mental illness. It's not the baseline human condition. Feeling this way is not normal, like I said. If you feel perfectly fine right now, then you're probably not the baseline average human in the country right now. How do we fix systems? That's the bigger question that I have. How do we fix incentive structures? And how do we guide technology into a position in which we can reverse this trend? I'd like for just a moment to play something that I stumbled across, which really kind of gave me some hope. I think that's what we all really need right now. And it does have to do with cryptocurrency. I'm not going to try and shill anything at the moment. Even if you don't understand some of the things that he starts to talk about halfway through, he wraps it up in a very beautiful way. But I think that there are so many things to look forward to that with this channel, with Daily Dividends, I want to begin doing what I can to try and guide the incentive structure of technology as a whole further in this direction, because it's not going to happen by sitting around and hoping that it will. So really quick, I'm going to play this, and hopefully you might get something out of it.
A red day. And every now and then I like making these videos to remind people why I am here and why you should be here too. As toxic as the trolls can be and these other people can be, none of them really matter. Markets don't really matter. What matters are the principles and the purpose behind what we do. And you have to ask yourself, are you happy with the way that society is? Are you happy with the money in your pocket? Are you happy with the political leadership representing your nations? Are you happy with your future? And do you honestly believe if we keep doing the things that we did and continue to do, that the future is going to be better? Or do you think it's going to be worse or stagnant? I think too many people have woken up and they realize that if we continue doing the things that we do, the future is going to be a bad place. And they don't want that to happen. And so we're voting with our wallets, we're voting with our feet, and we as a collective industry are waking up and figuring out how to build something better. And there's some good days and bad days along the way. Today's a bad one, but there are going to be good days tomorrow. Just like I told you back when Corona made everything go into free fall. And I told you before, and I warned you about with ICO mania. We're in a DeFi bubble right now. There's no doubt in my mind about that. I saw it in 2017 with ICO mania. I see it here. And there's probably going to be worse days ahead in that respect. But the trend is always the same, and never forget that. And never forget that real people are actually adopting these systems and using them. And every day we see more and more, and every day that movement grows. And what's so humbling is that I know a lot of you are here with me. It used to be a pretty lonely space to be in a few years back. You know, the conferences, they didn't have many people. My first Bitcoin meetup group in 2011 in Colorado was at the Gypsy House Cafe. I think I was 13th and Pearl over in Capitol Hill in Denver. And I registered for the event. I showed up. 2 people registered, myself and another guy. And the other guy didn't show up. So I had coffee with myself. Compare that with the Shelley Summit that we had in July of 2020. 10,000 attendees. 10,000 from all across the world. Compare that to where we are at today. Just 9 years later. Pretty amazing if you think about it, how fast things have grown and how many fertile, beautiful ideas exist in this industry and what this industry is doing for the world as a whole. And that is why we're going to win. Because at the end of the day, who can argue against freedom? Who can argue against liberty? Who can argue against putting people in control? The only way you can is when you believe people are stupid, people are evil, people are incapable. And I suppose that's a philosophical difference between those who currently lead and the people who want to replace them. The people in charge right now of the world, the big banks, the Fortune 500 companies, the media, Hollywood, these things, they're very cynical people who believe in the worst in us. They look at everyday people with disdain and disgust and say, these people, if left to their own devices, will be chaos. These people, if left to govern themselves, will burn everything to the ground and destroy everything. And every single time I have ever seen a bad event happen, what the news doesn't show you and what those people don't talk about is how we come together and help each other out. Someone gets injured in the streets, more often than not, people show up and help them. People need a helping hand. Someone always shows up more often than not. And this is no different. I don't believe the political process is effective anymore in any modern democracy. They've all been co-opted. Perhaps they always were. But what I do believe is that we can come together and change things economically, which is what we're doing. And it's messy. Building our own money is messy. Building our own industry is messy. We make a lot of mistakes along the way. We lose a lot along the way. We collect some scars too while we're at it. But progress every year keeps being made. The technology every year keeps getting better. Today, right here, right now, provably secure proof of stake protocols are in circulation. They were a fantasy 5 years ago. Now they're a fact of life. Today, right here, right now, snarks have evolved by an order of magnitude in every category, from validation time to efficiency to proof size, in all favorable ways, which opens up all kinds of new applications and scalability and privacy. Today, right here, right now, layer 2 protocols are more advanced than they have ever been in our industry's history, giving us the ability to build payment systems that scale to billions of people. Today, right here, right now, we are seeing massive innovations in governance and a fertile environment for things like approval voting, threshold voting, preference voting, quadratic voting, that will enable us to build all kinds of new treasuries and governance systems that eventually will scale to nation states. As the politicians of today argue whether the post office can properly count paper ballots that people mail, we are building voting systems with state-of-the-art cryptography, living on phones where you can vote with just a tap of a button and enjoy more security than we have ever imagined before. That is the future. This movement is enabling humanity. Money flowing at the speed of thought, and the speed of thought making new money. How can you compete with that? You can't, unless you bring people down with cynicism and disdain. And ultimately, what competing vision do they offer? That y'all should be in chains, that we should just be wage slaves. We should just accept that every year our money deteriorates in value, that we should just accept that the rich will get richer, the poor get poorer, and every now and then they throw us table scraps. And when we get real angry, they usurp the movements and then install their own leadership to basically take those movements from us, as we've seen so many times before, and we will see again. I'm sorry, that's not a road I want to walk down, and I'm willing to ride rocky waters, crazy markets, crazy people, and unlimited FUD and trolling. But I will never apologize for believing in the best in people, and I will never apologize for believing that if only we give everyone around us the tools to save themselves and society, that they can do it. They don't need great leaders and charisma. No one needs someone to tell them what to do. We all know what to do. We all know how to make the world a better place. We just have to be trusted enough to do it ourselves. And you know what? For the first time ever, we did with Bitcoin. And then we did it again with Ethereum. And now we're doing it again with Cardano. And we as a movement will continue to do it. So I believe our best days are ahead of us. And every day I wake up and there's more people marching with me in that respect. And one day it'll be millions. And one day it'll be billions. And then one day all those cynics will be gone, replaced with optimists who once again believe that tomorrow is going to be better than today, and that we're going to leave the world just a little bit better than the way we found it.
So a lot of people are just not really interested at all in the crypto space, and I don't blame them for doing so. Crypto is, the thing that I was into before Yang, before UBI, as this alternative to a system that I found to be incredibly unjust. Now, what he's talking about there, though, is something that's happening as we speak. The system is broken. And we can see that today. We can see that in the division today. I can see that, undoubtedly. How do we fix it? Well, it is very difficult. I do think, though, logging into Reddit the other day and then seeing that I all of a sudden had access to cryptocurrency called Moons on the cryptocurrency subreddit. It was very strange. I was rewarded for interacting with the community. I suddenly had this currency that I could exchange. I could flare up with, something that would characterize myself as different than this person or that person. And in doing so, would identify myself as a particular voice. Anonymity is both good and bad. I had been led to believe, I was more on the side that anonymity was good. Now I'm not so sure. I still think, though, you can be anonymous, but still be established and care about your anonymous persona. How many positive interactions do you have within this community? The more positive interactions you have within the community, the more cryptocurrency you'll get. It's the incentive structure that Andrew Yang was so good at formulating in his mind and his policies. How do we get people to behave like human beings. Because it does kind of seem like in the absence of an incentive structure. No, I'm not going to say that. I think that's incorrect. I think that the incentive structure that exists today is just bent around all of the wrong things. It's bent around the end result, the end product being Donald J. Trump, a malignant narcissist who the only reason I can imagine anyone is supporting at this moment is just an accelerationist hoping to burn society to the ground, in which case you're hoping to rebuild something. And good luck with that. I don't really necessarily want to like have this conversation centered around Trump. I'm trying to avoid doing that. And it's going to be harder to do as we get closer to the election. What I'm trying to say is that I really do think that technology, as much as it's tearing our country apart, can be used in a way that can save it. And throughout time, really, technology is just the end result of two human brains coming together and being joined by a third. It's not the technology itself that's transformative. It's what the brains that are gravitating towards the technology choose to do with it. If you think of the first technology as being human fire, it's not the fire that changed the world. It's the fact that now more people could congregate. More people could stave off the night. More people could stave off the darkness. Come up with better ideas with how to collectivize. The same thing goes for everything. All technology comes great responsibility, great potential, and great destructive power. And I think the destructive power has been winning out right now, but it's not going to keep on. The next iteration of the internet is on its way. Some extremely bright, talented minds are at the forefront of this fight. Like I said, I log into Reddit, I see that I've got this currency, and I am incentivized myself to have a positive engagement, positive interaction with other people. Nothing's going to stop me from being a troll, but if I find that at the end of the day I've got less financial security because of the way that I treat other people, then yeah, I'm going to be extra incentivized to have positive engagements and interactions. I'm extremely interested within this space, and in the following episodes to come, when I'm not so caught up in what today is, I'm hoping to try and explain in a layman's term the potential of cryptocurrency, the potential of artificial intelligence, and the convergence of these technologies as is the thing that I think we should be turning our attention in the absence and the void of a moral leader and of just in general a leader who understands and comprehends the world as it exists today, because I don't have any faith that a President Biden is going to be able to lead that charge. It's a separate discussion if we're talking about politics and the upcoming. Whatever happens, the world's going to be dramatically different in the next 5 to 10 years than it looks today, no matter what happens. Should be about mitigating the damage at this point. So to drive this home, to drive how I think technology can really help us, I'm going to end the show with a look at a discussion with Marcus Aurelius. I'm gonna butcher that. If it happened today, with Tim Ferriss. This entire discussion is the result of an artificial intelligence, GPT-3, which I'm going to try and go more in depth in the show, being asked to create this hypothetical discussion. In a nutshell, what this technology is just a word predictor. You're asking this technological genie in a box to put something that you're interested in, and it's going to do its best thing to provide the output that you're looking for. And this most recent iteration that we've seen is so powerful, so mind-boggling in its capacity, that I think it's going to change the world in ways that even I was not prepared for. If you would have asked me a year ago, I would have said the first thing to look for is a artificial intelligence that's so powerful that it can drive a car by itself. And the harder things to automate, to recreate, will be human creativity in general, will be the human connection that we can have with one another. After having my hands on applications of this technology, I can see the ways in which it will be able to bootstrap our emotional health, our creative capacity, and ways that we can connect with each other, but also mirror the connection with ourselves, and start to build a foundation of mental health, mental prosperity, even when the seas are so choppy like they are right now. So the following is a conversation with Marcus Aurelius, if he were appearing on the Tim Ferriss podcast. This is from Aram Sabeti, his kind of blog post that he has here. This is AI Tim Ferriss interviews AI Marcus Aurelius with GPT. The only thing that has been inputted here by a human is this first line here. I'm sorry, these two lines. Here is a transcript from Tim Ferriss's interview with Marcus Aurelius. Tim, thank you for joining me, Marcus. Or should I use your title, Caesar? So just to make sure that you understand what's happening here. Only thing that's happened is a human has put in these two sentences as a prompt. Everything that happens from this point on is just a word predictor. Basically the same thing as when you're texting someone and it says, I think you want to say the word will after I. It's just these parameters that it's working with. It's reading the entire internet and it's starting to extrapolate outcomes that it thinks is the thing that you want. And this is how good it's gotten. Marcus. You may call me Marcus. I do not stand on ceremony. Tim, fair enough. So I want to start at the beginning. What is Stoicism? Marcus. Stoicism is a philosophy of life. It is a way of looking at the world. It is about seeing clearly what is in front of us and feeling what is in our hearts. It's about doing what is right, no matter what the cost. It is about living in accordance to nature and treating others with kindness and respect. Tim, I like that. So, what's the goal of Stoicism? Marcus, the goal of Stoicism is to lead a good life, and a life accordance with nature. Tim, what does that mean? Marcus, it means doing what we ought to do, not doing what we want to do. It means acting rationally, not emotionally. Tim, okay, so how do we do that? Marcus, by paying attention to what is in our power and not worrying about the rest. Tim, that's a great answer, but what does that mean? Marcus, it means we have control over our actions, our judgments, and our feelings. It means we can choose how to respond to events outside of our control. It means we can choose what to think. Tim, I like that. So, how do you apply Stoicism to life? Marcus, by facing the world with a smile and acting with justice, kindness, and honesty. I like that too. So, can you give me an example? Marcus, sure. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they can't tell good from evil. But I have seen the beauty of good and the ugliness of evil, and have recognized that the wrongdoer has a nature related to my own, not of the same blood and birth, but of the same mind, and possessing a share of the divine. And so none of them can hurt me. No one can implicate me in ugliness, nor can I feel angry at my relative, or hate him. We were born to work together, like feet, hands, and eyes, like the two rows of teeth, upper and lower. To obstruct each other is unnatural. To feel anger at someone, to turn your back on him, these are obstructions. Tim, that's a great passage. So how do we deal with adversity? Marcus, by recognizing that there is nothing more than what it is, a thing that can be endured. Tim, that's hard. It is, but it's also liberating. How do you mean? The things that cause us suffering are those that are out of our control. Death, illness, poverty, dishonor, slander, and all such things. If you accept that they are fated to happen, they will lose their power over you. That's a powerful idea. So how do we deal with pain? Marcus, the first step is recognizing that pain is an opinion, not a fact. The second is accepting that it can't be changed. The third is being thankful that it isn't worse. Tim, that's a great way of putting it. So what's the best way to deal with other people? Marcus, be kind. Everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle. Tim, what about those who are unkind? Marcus, they are like children, who are not unkind, who are unkind and not by choice, but because they don't know better. How do we deal with external events that we can't control? We have to accept that we have no control over them. Tim, I like that. I have a question. I heard it said that Stoicism is a cold and emotionless philosophy. Marcus, that's not true. Stoics feel all the emotions. They just don't allow those emotions to determine their behavior. So you're saying that Stoics don't repress their emotions? Marcus, no. The Stoic does not indulge her emotions, but she feels them fully and completely. What about death? Death is nothing to us. When we exist, death is not yet present. And when death is present, then we no longer exist. It doesn't concern us at all. That's a great answer. So, can you sum up Stoicism for me? Sure. I can tell you that it is the art of living. It is about seeing clearly, doing good, and facing adversity. Is it about accepting what cannot be changed and freeing yourself from the things that cause you suffering? It is about being strong and kind. It is about seeing the world as it is, not as you want it to be. So at this point, the human comes in and creates this prompt. One thing to note about GPT-3 is that it's extremely good at reading a prompt, but it does start to lose its ability to relate to what you're saying as it continues on. So in order to kind of guide it back to the topic at hand, you have to, quote, program by prompt. So the human at this point types in, Tim, I like that. For a small change of topic, there are a few questions I'd like to ask. As you may know, I'm a huge fan of books and read dozens of them every year. What is the book or books you've given most as a gift, and why? What are 1 to 3 books that have greatly influenced your life? So this is just such an interesting application, or this is such an interesting engagement of artificial intelligence, is to try and take what the AI believes Marcus Aurelius to be, and then extrapolate what, given the modern day and age, the modern pop culture, media, novels, and fiction of the day, would be relevant to his ideology. So, the AI Marcus continues, I'm a big fan of biographies, especially those of the great philosophers and statesmen. I like to read about how others have dealt with adversity and challenges. I also love history books, especially those of the Roman Empire. Tim, I like that. What about books you've read recently that you would recommend? Marcus, I've been reading The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. It's about how to turn obstacles into advantages. That sounds good. I'll check it out. What about books that have been greatly influenced in your life? Marcus, The Enchiridion of Epictetus. Oh, it's really trying to tongue twist me now. Tim, I guess you like Roman philosophers. What about favorite quotes? I have many favorites. Give me some. It is difficult to fight against one's natural impulses. Accept life as it comes. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. How much time he saves who does not look to see what his neighbor says, or does, or thinks. Again, this is an artificial intelligence speaking. This has only been guided by 2 sentences, and then in the middle, 1 paragraph by a human perspective. Tim, I like those. What about favorite movies or TV shows? Marcus, I'm a big fan of many of the HBO series, such as Rome, The Sopranos, and Game of Thrones. For Marcus, I don't think he's seen the ending of Game of Thrones yet. At this point, the human comes back in and says, what purchase of $100 or less has most positively impacted your life in the last 6 months or in recent memory? My readers love specifics like brand and model, where you found it, etc. So again, I'm really going to dive into this in episodes to come because I think this is the most transformative technology I have ever seen. It has got me unbelievably, it's just so cerebral in nature. What we're seeing happen here is he's interacting with this hypothetical AI, Marcus Aurelius, by what's called programming by prompt. Whereas normal programming with, an application, you would be in code, C++ and Python and all of this and that. This natural language processor that is GTP3, developed by OpenAI, that's Sam Altman of Y Combinator and Elon Musk of Tesla and SpaceX. They own OpenAI, which has developed GPT-3. It's just essentially, it's able to understand the human language so well that it can just respond to what you ask it to do. And if it doesn't do what you want it to do, just like if a certain line of code doesn't interact with the rest of the code, you have to go in and just alter the code until it does. This natural language processor will be able to respond and more accurately output what it is that you're asking it to do. Change the prompt. So where he says, my readers love specifics like brand and model or where you found it, etc., there's a couple different things happening here. He's requesting that the AI go into a specific brand and model, where you found it, and then etc. Also adding in, undetermined variables at the end of it, and then saying my readers, keeping the AI on track of following along with the blog. So as we see artificial intelligence evolve, what we're really going to see is, at least in this space, the evolution of accurate prompts, of how to prompt correctly. Because you can have a bad prompt and get a bad outcome. The AI works better with what you give it initially. It's just a mind-blowing. Okay, let's continue. The AI Marcus responds to this question by saying, Marcus, I'm a big fan of the Moleskine notebooks. I just ordered the new junior version. Again, the human writes here, how has a failure or apparent failure set you up for later success? Do you have a favorite failure of yours? Marcus says, I failed at many things early in life. I failed as a student, as an athlete, and as a politician. I failed as a husband and a father. But each failure taught me something about myself and the world. I learned from these failures and became a better man for it. If you could have a gigantic billboard, anything on it, metaphorically speaking, getting a message out to millions or billions, what would you say to it and why? It could be a few words or a paragraph. That was written by a human. Marcus. Quote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. The human. What is one of the best or most worthwhile investments you've ever made? It would be an investment of money, time, energy, etc. Marcus says, travel. I've visited many countries and learned much from others. Tim, what is an unusual habit or an absurd thing that you love? Marcus, I love to swim. I've done it every day for years. What is the best advice you've ever received? I have no talent for drinking. I must therefore leave it alone. I like that. So what's a personal habit that contributes to your success? I write in a journal every day. Just a quick note. I think Andrew Yang also has that advice for us. The human comes back in. In the last 5 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life? So again, right here, the human is trying to guide the AI back to the realization that, the specific time frame that we're talking about is the past 5 years. Marcus says, I've adopted a no complaining policy. I used to complain all the time about everything. This doesn't mean I don't have complaints. It means I keep them to myself. Like I said, the reason why I'm doing this right now is because this artificial intelligence, in the things that it's brought up, whether they are word for word verbatim of the writings of Marcus Aurelius, it has enhanced the way that I view and interface with the world. I think that I could probably keep some of the complaints that I have about our current world to myself a little bit more often. Tim, the human, what advice would you give to a smart, driven college student about how to enter the, quote, real world? Marcus, educate yourself. Read as much as you can. Surround yourself with people who are better than you. Don't waste time on jealousy or resentment. Don't let your emotions control you. Find a cause that is bigger than yourself and devote yourself to it. The human comes back in. What are bad recommendations you hear in your profession or area of expertise? Marcus says, your gut doesn't matter. That's a quote. You must learn to trust your gut and use it to navigate the world. Another quote, it's too late for this, or you're too old for that, or you'll never be able to do that. The human, again, in the last 5 years, what have you become better at saying no to? Distractions, invitations, etc. What new realizations and or approaches have helped? Any other tips? Marcus, I've learned that it's better to give a small amount of time to many people than a lot of time to few people. The human again comes in. When you feel overwhelmed or unfocused or have lost your focus temporarily, what do you do? If helpful, what questions do you ask yourself? Marcus, I take a break and do some exercise. Then I get back to work. The AI Tim, if you were to start again, what would you do differently? Marcus, I would have studied philosophy much earlier in life. It has changed everything for me. Tim, if you could wake up, this is the AI still. If you could wake up tomorrow having gained any one quality or ability, what would it be? There is no right answer, I'm just curious. Marcus, I would like to be able to read other people's minds. I'm pretty good at understanding what others are thinking. But I'd like to be able to read their thoughts directly. Tim, one last question. What does success mean to you? Marcus, finding a purpose larger than yourself and devoting your life to it. Tim says, thank you, Marcus. I really enjoyed this. Marcus, it was a pleasure. And I think that it actually ends here with, I think Marcus actually gives like these hypothetical plugs. He says, if you like this conversation, I think you'll like my books, Tools of Titans, The Tactics, Routines, and Habits of Billionaires, Icons, and World-Class Performers. In the book, I deconstruct world-class performance routines and habits you can apply to your, and then it stops abruptly. So I think that that's just kind of like where, because one of the possibilities that I don't know if this author did or did not do is, you can choose the best prompt. He may have put the prompt in, gotten about 5 or 6 different responses, and he chose the one that he thinks was the most to the prompt in question. What should be noted is that even with that consideration in play, the advancement that this GPT-3 has made over its previous iteration, GPT-2, is so incredibly powerful that we're talking about like having to choose between 100 different prompts that it would give you to find something good and coherent to literally 1 to 5. It is so good that it just streamlines creativity. I can't even begin to express how powerful this thing is, and there is no sign of it stopping in the way that it grows. Over the past couple of years, no. Over the past couple of, in the coming years, no. In the coming number of months, we're going to see this thing start to do things that look like magic to us. And I highly encourage you, if you're watching this stream or if you're interested in what I'm talking about right now, to follow along with these streams as they come. I really am going to put this in the forefront of the topics and discussion because its applications are just endless. And as we start to traverse this new frontier, it is us who are going to be interacting with this technology and leading it. And it is us who will have the ability to try and guide the new world in the vision that we see it. Not just the small pool of programmers with probably very good intentions that traveled to Silicon Valley of yesterday, but really it's opening up. And whether it be through cryptocurrency or more accessible artificial intelligence, we have a duty to play in a world that is coming to be. And I'm excited for it. And I think that it's very important to be excited for things right now. Hard times are nothing new in the world, and I think a lot of people came together under the flag of religion, or under the flag of community, or the flag of this or that. And right now there's not a lot of flags under the flag of pet ownership. You gotta find your flag. And maybe, hopefully, with my channel, I can be one. My DMs are open, and if anything that I've said to you has struck out in a way that is, I can't guarantee that I have all of the answers or this or that, but feel free and reach out. Reach out to people who are in your immediate circle during these times, because I know that it's hard, and it's going to get a little bit harder before it gets better. Yeah, again, to my community, I have met some of the most amazing people over the past couple of months, and I'm just so grateful for the support that you guys have given me, guys and gals. I really am hoping to continue coming out with things. Thank you so much for your patience and everything. Yeah, I think that's just about it. I'm going to end the stream there, and I hope to be back tomorrow. I've got an all-day occasion, so the next daily dividend should be Sunday. Okay. You guys continue to look after yourselves. Try and interface with the world. Bring your attention into it. It's hard. It's not easy. It's going to be difficult. But just in everyday interactions, understand that what's happening is a beauty. And in the hard times, there's beauty. And we need you here with us. You guys have a good night. I'll talk to you soon.